If you don't have a plan, you are planning to fail. I'm Eric Gall, and I am a family coach and a family member. And thanks for joining me and watching this video. Now, in this video, I want to talk about why having a life plan for your loved one with a developmental disability is so important. But you might also be asking the question, well, Eric, what do you mean by a life plan? Now, I've had the pleasure of supporting my sister, Sarah, to create a life plan, as well as 500 other families to support their loved one to create their own customized, individualized, awesome, ordinary life plan. So you've got this question, well, Eric, what is a life plan? Help me understand what you're talking about here. Well, a life plan is thinking about as your loved one gets older, right? As they move, into their adult life, or continue to grow into their adult life, what does that life look like, right? And what are the things in their life that are most important to your loved one and important to your family? Okay, so it could be things like relationships. It could be things like work. It could be things like contributing to the community, friendships. Where is your loved one going to live, right? All of those things are important to your loved one's life, and we need to be really intentional about thinking about those things and about bringing in the right people to support your loved one throughout their life. And it can feel like a bit of a daunting task, and a lot of especially when we think about inviting other people in, like it's just a hard thing to do for us as families, right? So you could just start by writing down, envisioning what that future could potentially look like. But then you start to think about, well, Eric, what am I going to put in it, right? Like I get the paper out in front of me, and I start writing, but really, what am I going to put in here in this life plan for my loved one? And that's really important. The things that you put in that life plan are important. And so I want to tell you about the things that I help families think about that are really essential when creating that life plan. So one of the starting places that I start with families is thinking about capability. And in other words, we often talk about this as independence. So I use those words interchangeably, capability and independence. So thinking about how can your loved one be growing their independence and their capability. Okay, so that's one of the key things that I work on families in getting into the life plan. The next thing we think about is relationships. So, and typically when we're life planning with families, we're thinking about 5 years out. So 5 years from now, what would your loved one's awesome, ordinary life look like in terms of independence? What would it look like in terms of relationships? So who are those loving, trusting people that are in freely given a relationship? What does that look like 5 years from now? What would be awesome, right? And we want to write that down. We want to think about contribution. How is our loved one contributing back to society? Whether that's paid work, could be different opportunities in ordinary places in the community, could be contributing back to your family, into their household, right? And then we want to think about home. Home is, I know this is a challenge for many families, especially when it comes up against the question of affordability. But people with developmental disabilities are told that they can only live in group homes. But that's not true. I've helped families to create individualized home. So that's possible for your loved one as well. Then we want to think about supports. So these are all elements just to start to get you thinking about what are the elements that you would have in a life plan, right? And again, that life plan being this living document, but thinking about 5 years from now, what would be awesome. So we need to have that plan, right? Because if we don't have a plan, we're planning to fail. And if we don't have a plan, what happens? We fast forward 5 years. Well, our loved one, we didn't have that intention. We weren't strategically thinking about what would be an awesome life for our loved one. So it just happens on autopilot. And that life on autopilot for a person with developmental disabilities is a special needs life. So that means we're thinking about, well, what are the day programs? What are the group homes? And that leads to a life of exclusion, not a life of inclusion, right? And the life that I help families build is a life of inclusion, an awesome, ordinary life. So building a plan for that awesome, ordinary life. So to help you to get started with this, I've got an awesome upcoming workshop called the Life plan workshop, and it's all about starting to create that awesome ordinary life with your loved one, shifting out of that special needs way of thinking and into that awesome ordinary way of thinking. So this workshop is going to be awesome. I think it's really going to help you. It's going to help you get started with that life plan so that you have a plan, right? Moving forward into the future. So I encourage you to scroll down, click the link below, and register for the life plan workshop. It's changed many people's lives, and it has the power to do the same for you and your loved ones. So we'd love it if you joined us. I'm Eric Gall. Together, let's take a small step forward.